Life can change in an instant. One moment you're driving home from a late shift at the hospital. The next you're waking up in a hospital bed, unable to feel your legs. But sometimes the real pain isn't physical. It's discovering who stands by you when things get tough and who walks away. My name is Elena Rodriguez, and I was a nurse at Memorial Hospital until the night a drunk driver ran a red light and shattered not just my body, but my faith and family. The first few days after the accident were a blur of surgeries, pain medication, and tearful family visits. My parents, my older brother Marco, and my younger sister Sophia crowded around my bed, promising they'd help me through this. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. With intensive physical therapy and proper care, I might walk again. Then the medical bills started arriving. $150,000. Mom's voice shook as she read the first statement. But your insurance. My coverage has a cap, I explained weakly, and I'll need ongoing physical therapy, maybe modifications to my apartment. We'll figure something out, Dad said, but I saw the worry in his eyes. Our family had never been wealthy. Mom and Dad had worked hard to put us through school. Marco was now a successful real estate agent. Sophia was finishing law school, and I'd chosen nursing because I wanted to help people. The first sign of trouble came when Marco missed our weekly family dinner. He's busy with a big listing, Mom explained, not meeting my highs. Sophia stopped visiting soon after, claiming her final exams needed all her attention. Then came the conversation that would haunt me. Elena, honey, Mom perched on the edge of my hospital bed, Dad standing awkwardly by the window. We need to talk about arrangements. I knew that tone. It was the same one she used when telling me our childhood dog had died. What arrangements? Your medical bills, Dad cut in. They're overwhelming. The physical therapy alone would drain our retirement savings and the modifications to the house. My apartment, I corrected. I'll need modifications to my apartment. Mom and Dad exchanged glances. About that, Mom said gently, we've been thinking. Maybe it would be better if you moved to a care facility. There's one in Nevada that accepts charity cases. The word hit me like a physical blow. Charity cases. You want to send me away. We want what's best for everyone, Dad said, his voice strained. Your siblings have their own lives, their own futures to think about. We can't let your situation drain the family's resources. My situation. Like my paralysis was a poor financial decision I made. I see, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. And what does Grandma Rosa think about this plan? Another uncomfortable glance between them. My grandmother Rosa had raised me as much as my parents had, teaching me Spanish lullabies and ancient family recipes. She'd been the one who supported my dream of becoming a nurse when my parents wanted me to pursue something more lucrative. Your grandmother is emotional about this, Mom said carefully. She's not thinking practically. She's thinking like family, I shot back. Which is more than I can say for you. They left shortly after, promising to look into the Nevada facility. I lay in my hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to process how quickly my family had decided I was too expensive to love. But Grandma Rosa had other plans. She arrived the next morning like a tiny hurricane, all 5 feet of her bristling with righteous anger. Que vergüenza, she declared, setting down a basket of homemade empanadas. Your parents have lost their minds if they think I'm letting my Naida be sent away like unwanted furniture. Grandma, the bills are none of your concern, she cut me off firmly. I may be old, but I'm not poor. I have savings, investments. Your abuelo didn't work 40 years in his restaurant for nothing. Over the next few weeks, as I began physical therapy, Grandma Rosa became my rock. She attended every session, learned every exercise, and filled out every insurance form. When I was finally discharged, she insisted I move in with her rather than go to my now inaccessible apartment. Your parents think money is everything, she muttered as she helped me settle into her guest room. Now equipped with all the necessary modifications, they forget what matters most. My family's visits became rare and stopped altogether. Marco sent occasional texts, usually around holidays. Sophia made excuses about being too busy with her new law firm job. Mom and Dad called on my birthday, their voices stiff with awkward guilt. But Grandma Rosa never wavered. She drove me to therapy, cooked my favorite meals, and slowly helped me rebuild my strength, both physical and emotional. When I had dark days, questioning if I'd ever walk again, She'd sit beside me telling stories about our family's history of overcoming adversity. Your great-grandmother crossed the border with nothing but 3 children and a dream, she'd say. You have her spirit, Miss Fue que al acero, stronger than steel. A year passed. With intensive therapy and Grandma's unwavering support, I progressed from wheelchair to walker to forearm crutches. The doctors called it remarkable. I called it stubbornness, another family trait, according to Grandma. Then came the diagnosis that would change everything again. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, the doctor said gently, looking at Grandma Rosa's scans. I'm so sorry. I sat there in my wheelchair, holding my grandmother's hand, feeling the world tilt on its axis once more. But Grandma Rosa just nodded, as if she'd been expecting this. How long? She asked calmly. 3 months, maybe 4. She squeezed my hand. Enough time. Enough time for what, Grandma? She smiled mysteriously. Enough time to make sure justice is served, my amor. Your family thinks money is everything. Let's see how they feel when they learn the truth about my will. I didn't understand then what she meant. I was too focused on the idea of losing her, the one person who'd stood by me through everything. But Grandma Rosa had been planning for this moment for longer than any of us knew. And her final act of love would shake our family to its core. Part 2. Grandma Rosa's final months were a masterclass in quiet dignity and careful planning. While I focused on taking care of her, she was busy putting her own plan into motion. Mi amor, she called me into her study one evening, about a month after her diagnosis. There's something you need to know. She was sitting at her antique desk, surrounded by papers and old photographs. The room smelled of her favorite coffee and the lavender lotion she always used. I maneuvered my wheelchair next to her, noticing how thin she'd become, how the cancer was stealing her strength but not her spirit. Your abuelo and I, she began, pulling out a thick folder. We weren't just restaurant owners. We were investors. Smart ones. She opened the folder, revealing bank statements and property deeds. Everyone thinks the restaurant was our only success. But Miguel had a gift for seeing opportunities. The documents showed a portfolio worth millions, commercial properties, stock investments, even partial ownership in several successful businesses across the city. Grandma, I whispered. How? Why didn't anyone know? She smiled, the same mysterious smile she'd worn at the doctor's office. Because money changes people, my amor. We saw how it changed your father when his business did well, how it made him forget where he came from. We decided our children would make their own way, earn their own success. The money would wait for the right moment, for someone who understood its true value. She pulled out another document, her will, dated just after my accident. I've watched this past year, she continued, her voice hardening slightly. Watch how your family abandoned you when you needed them most. How they chose money over love, convenience over responsibility. They showed their true colors, and now they will face the consequences. The will was clear. The entire estate, worth nearly $15 million, would go to me. There were smaller bequests to various charities, but the bulk of the fortune, the properties, investments, even the beloved restaurant, would be mine. But Grandma, I protested. What about Mom, Marco, and Sophia? They get what they valued most, she said firmly. Nothing. They chose money over family. Let them live with that choice. Over the next few weeks, as Grandma's condition worsened, she taught me everything about managing the portfolio. She introduced me to her financial advisors, her property managers, her business partners. Every lesson was a gift. Every introduction a piece of the legacy she was preparing me to carry. The family began visiting again as news of Grandma's illness spread. First Mom and Dad, then Marco and Sophia. They brought flowers, offered help, made awkward conversation that carefully avoided any mention of their year-long absence. Such devoted children, Grandma would say, her voice dripping with sarcasm they never seemed to notice. So concerned about their poor sick mother. I watched them fawn over her, remembering how easily they'd been willing to ship me off to Nevada when I was the one who needed care. The contrast was stark, painful, illuminating. The end came peacefully on a Sunday morning. Grandma Rosa passed away in her sleep, the scent of fresh coffee still lingering in the kitchen from her last late-night cafecito. The family gathered for the funeral, appropriately sad and supportive. Mom kept trying to hug me, Sophia offered to help me sort through things, and Marco started talking about selling the house to cover expenses. Then came the reading of the will. Mr. Ramirez, Grandma's lawyer for over 30 years, watched with barely concealed satisfaction as he revealed the truth about her estate, the properties, the investments, the millions she'd accumulated in secret. The entire estate, he announced, with the exception of specified charitable donations, is bequeathed to Elena Rodriguez, with the following message to be read to the family. He pulled out a separate envelope and began to read. To my family, money shows us who people truly are. When Elena needed you most, you showed me exactly who you have become. You chose wealth over love, convenience over compassion. Now you will understand the cost of that choice. Elena, my amor, you proved yourself worthy of this legacy not through success or status, but through the strength of your heart. Use it wisely, use it kindly, but never use it to enable those who would abandon family for financial convenience. The room erupted in chaos. Mom burst into tears. Dad started shouting about undue influence. Marco and Sophia looked like they'd been slapped. This can't be legal, Marco sputtered. She wasn't in her right mind. I have extensive documentation proving otherwise, Mr. Ramirez said calmly, including videos Dolorosa recorded explaining her decisions. Would you like to see them? They didn't. Of course they didn't. Instead, they turned to me, faces transformed by desperate hope. Elena, sweetie, Mom stepped forward. You know this isn't what your grandmother really wanted. We're family. Family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Where was family when you wanted to send me to Nevada? When you decided I was too expensive to love? We were scared. Sophia tried. We didn't know what to do. Grandma knew. I cut her off. She knew exactly what to do. She showed up. She helped. She put family first. But the money, Marco began, is exactly why you're all here now, I finished. Not because you care about me, not because you miss Grandma, but because suddenly there's money involved. Just like when you disappeared because my medical bills were too expensive. I wheeled myself to the door, then turned back to face them one last time. Grandma Rosa taught me a lot this past year. About strength, about dignity, about what really matters. But you know what the most important lesson was? Sometimes the family you're born with isn't the family you end up with. In the months that followed, I honored Grandma's legacy in ways that would have made her proud. I established a foundation providing medical assistance to accident victims whose families couldn't afford care. I kept the restaurant running, maintaining it as a cornerstone of the community she'd loved. My family made various attempts to reconcile, each one transparently motivated by the hope of access to the inheritance. I met each attempt with the same response. The time for family was when I needed you, not when you need something from me. Eventually, they stopped trying. Today, 2 years after Grandma Rosa's passing, I run the foundation from an office above the restaurant. I'm walking again, though I keep my wheelchair as a reminder of both the darkest and brightest moments of my life. The physical therapy center I opened next door helps others find their strength, just as I found mine. Sometimes late at night, I sit in Grandma's study, my study now, and look at old family photos, not with sadness, but with understanding. Money doesn't just talk, as the saying goes. It reveals. It shows us who people really are, not through its presence, but through its absence. Last week, a young accident victim came to the foundation seeking help. His family had abandoned him, deciding his care was too expensive. I looked at him and saw myself 2 years ago, broken, betrayed, but not beaten. Let me tell you a story, I said, wheeling over to sit beside him. About a grandmother who taught me that family isn't about blood or money. It's about who shows up when showing up is hard. As I spoke, I could almost smell Grandma's coffee, hear her voice saying, Miss Fuert que el acero. And I knew she was right. Some things are stronger than steel, love, dignity, and the courage to stand by family when it matters most. That's a legacy worth more than all the millions in the world.